Hello, welcome to Full Moon Meditations for the month of October 2019. This month's full moon brings us a square to Pluto, and the full moon itself is in Aries. This particular combination is said to bring a wave of intense and challenging emotions to the surface. Currently, Venus is also in Scorpio, which makes all matters of love and abundance and creativity more complicated and in depth and layered than usual. And last but not least, there is also a beneficial trine to Jupiter, which will help us move through these other aspects of the full moon this month and encourage us to bring open-mindedness and positivity and personal evolution and spiritual evolution into our life. And what this moon has brought up for me in particular is simply the ability to show up for the process we know as life. Recently, I was teaching about the Kleshas, or the obstacles in yoga. They're essentially a list by Patanjali's Yoga Sutras of the inevitable obstacles we face in life, and first and foremost, considered to be the foundation of all other obstacles, is avidya, which is ignorance of the self. The letter A, when it comes before the rest of the word as a prefix, it means without, and vidya means wisdom. So vidya in Sanskrit translates to without wisdom or lacking wisdom, but typically this refers to lack of knowledge about the self. And so whenever we are experiencing these obstacles or challenges in life, really and truly the best and only way to unpeel the layers of that is to be present with the self and to dive in deeper to our own practices, to discover from within the answers, because ultimately the answer to many of life's challenges does not come from us specifically. It comes from our ability to channel divine grace. And so whenever we are willing to peel back these layers and remain present through these challenging moments and continue to breathe and show up for the emotional, mental, physical, financial, logistical, spiritual turmoil of our lives, whenever we're able to really show up and be present and face it with a clear and conscious and heart-centered intention, then we are supported by the divine grace in dissolving and essentially overcoming these obstacles. But the primary obstacle that we need to overcome is avidya, which is ignorance of the self. So the primary meditation practice that I wanted to share with you this month is known to me as holding the opposites. This is a practice that I learned in Yoga Nidra many years ago. One of the teachers I had, she was actually a therapist, and she combined psychotherapy with Yoga Nidra, and it was by far one of the most helpful techniques that I've ever received in terms of overcoming, emotional, mental, spiritual challenges in my past. whenever I was reflecting on the obstacles, this particular practice came to mind. I think because whenever we're faced with these really difficult challenges in life, it can be really overwhelming. Like we just become so overwhelmed by the negative aspects of these obstacles that we block ourselves from receiving the many blessings of divine grace because we're just not centered, we're not grounded, we're not able to connect with our highest self, we're not able to receive that. And so the practice of holding the opposites essentially, of course, I'll walk you through the practice when we move into it, but just as a brief introduction, essentially you're holding the opposite emotions at the same time or opposite thoughts and feelings. So in the exercise, what I'll encourage you to do is invite, one negative or difficult experience that you're having in life and to be present with those feelings and thoughts for a few moments. And then to invite a more positive feeling, essentially the opposite of that feeling specifically, and to hold that and breathe with that for a few moments. And then I'll invite you to hold both of them and at the same time. And this practice is really incredible because for me, what happens is that everything just dissolves at the end. Everything just, falls away. And then what's left is just my remembrance that, I'm supported by divine grace and that my thoughts and feelings, while entirely valid, are not the entire picture either. There's so many more possibilities to life than what we assume or expect might happen. So that's a little bit of an intro to our primary practice today. I have a couple of other practices that I'll introduce to you as well before we get started. We'll actually begin with a mantra. When I was sitting in meditation yesterday, this mantra came to mind, and I have not practiced this mantra in a little while. I think it's been since the ashram days. But it's Om Triambakam is the mantra. It's actually a Shiva mantra, and it's a wonderful mantra for dissolving the obstacles. It when I went back and looked at the translation, I realized that was really the perfect mantra for me for this weekend. So I'm really glad that it appeared into my consciousness yesterday during meditation, but I've been working with it a little bit yesterday and this morning, and it's been really helpful for me to move through the thoughts and feelings on the surface. So we'll begin with that practice. I'll just share with you a few of the notes I have on the translation of it. Of course, it begins with Om. Triambakam is the third I one. We're speaking of Shiva here, or one of the aspects of Shiva. We honor you and ask for your divine grace in invoking the positive aspects of life. And I'm just reading bits and pieces of all the many notes I have here. Vardhanam, which is part of the mantra, means one who nourishes, strengthens, causes increase to health and well-being, exhilarates, restores health. Like the cucumber melon is Orva rukam. It means like the cucumber melon, bound down, bandhanan, free, or liberated from death. So we're asking to be liberated from death. We're asking for our health and wellness to be nourished, and bringing prosperity and fullness of life into our consciousness. So this is the meaning of this mantra. And then after the mantra, we'll practice a little bit of pranayama before we practice the holding the opposites meditation. I have a little bit of a disclaimer about pranayama before we get started, which is that typically I don't recommend practicing pranayama unless you've received the teachings in person, just because they are, specific, breathing techniques that require more detailed instruction than what I will give you here. And it's also easier to understand in person. But I will give instructions for these pranayams just to lead you and guide you through them. I'll also give you alternate suggestions. So if we're practicing a certain kind of pranayama and you're not familiar with it, or if the instructions are just confusing, I'll offer you an alternative instead. That's just a simple breathing practice. I hope it's not too confusing to give multiple different options, but I think ultimately I just want you to feel as supported in your practice as possible. So feel free also to let me know if you have any questions. I can send you a little video or chat with you about it another time. When you are ready, you can come to a comfortable seated position and close the eyes. And we'll begin our practice in just a moment. We'll begin by bringing the awareness to the physical body. Ground the sitting bones into the ground or the props beneath you. Bring the awareness to the navel and draw it in towards the low back. Bring the awareness to the heart center and lift up and out through the chest. Spread open the collarbones. Draw the shoulder blades back and down. Lift up powerfully through the back of the neck, all the way up through the crown of the head, to create a simultaneous lift above you while maintaining the grounding force beneath you. We can begin by bringing the hands together at the heart center and bowing the head, and I'll share the Om Triambakam mantra with you. You're welcome to chant along if you know the mantra, or you're welcome to just listen. Triambakam yajamahe sukandim pushtivardhanam urvarukamiva bandhanan mrityurmukshyaamamritat. Om Triambakam yajamahe sukandim pushtivardhanam urvarukamiva bandhanan mrityurmukshyaamamritat. Om Triambakam yajamahe sukandim pushtivardhanam urvarukamiva bandhanam mrityurmukshyaamamritat. Om. You can release the hands down and lift the head. Our next practice is Nadi Shodhana, or alternate nostril breathing. If you are not familiar with this practice or you feel confused by the instructions, then I'll invite you to simply practice nasal breathing, breathing in and out through the nose. So we'll begin by taking the right finger or the right hand and pressing the right index and middle fingers together and then pressing them onto the third eye. So your right index finger and middle finger are touching your third eye. And then your thumb on your right hand slightly touches the outside of the right side of your nostril. And then the outside two fingers, the ring finger and the pinky finger, just lightly touch the outside of the left nostril. So right now we're just placing the fingers. Before we begin the alternate nostril practice, we'll just take a couple of slow, deep breaths in and out through the nostrils. And then after your next inhalation, close the right nostril and breathe out through the left. Inhale through the left. Close the left nostril and exhale through the right. Inhale through the right nostril. Switch sides, exhale through the left. Inhale through the left. Close the left nostril, open the right, breathe out through the right. Inhale through the right nostril. Switch sides and breathe out through the left. I'll invite you to continue this practice for a few more breaths. Again, if the instructions are not clear or you would like further instruction before practicing, then please feel free to simply practice nasal breathing in and out through the nose. When you're ready, after your next exhalation, you can slowly release the practice. And then I'll invite you to practice a few slow, long, deep belly breaths. You can even invite Ujjayi here. If you practice Ujjayi, it's the partial closing of the throat so that it creates the ocean wave sound when you breathe. Or again, you can practice simply slow, deep, long belly breaths. When you're ready, you can slowly release your breathing practice. Nadi Shodhana, I want to mention, is technically not a pranayama, it's a kriya, it's a cleansing practice. And so Nadi means channel and Shodhana means cleansing, and the intention of that practice is to cleanse all 72,000 of the channels in the body according to the Vedic system. So we're clearing out the energetic obstacles, blockages, kleshas. It's a wonderful way to begin this practice. And next we'll simply close the eyes or keep them closed if they're already closed, and we'll move slowly into the meditation of holding the opposites. Hopefully the breath feels more calm and centered now, but feel free to check in with your breath or with the physical body, and if you're feeling any tension, any place in the physical body, I encourage you to bring your breath and awareness there for just a moment. Then with holding the opposites, what we'll begin to do is imagine an experience or circumstance in our life currently, or maybe in our most recent past, that is challenging or difficult or painful. And instead of your potential tendency to feel overwhelmed by it, I encourage you to just feel those feelings and observe the thoughts, being present with it without attachment to it. But allow yourself to fully feel, just without needing to control it or needing to manipulate it in any way. Simply observing and feeling. And just allow whatever comes up to the surface to arise naturally. And just continue to hold that feeling for a few more breaths. Remember to keep breathing. And then slowly you can release that thought. And then we'll move to the opposite feeling. And so I want you to reflect on if this feeling could have them, or if this experience or circumstance or past experience if it can have the most perfect outcome and be the most positive and nourishing and uplifting that it could possibly be, what would that feel like? What thoughts come to mind? What sensations do you feel in your body when you consider the opposites? Now we're reflecting on what is the absolutely most positive and wonderful outcome. Remember to continue breathing as we hold this feeling for a few more breaths. And then inhale, exhale, slowly release this thought from your mind. Now I'll invite you to hold both of these experiences at the same time. What does it feel like to hold the opposites in a dualistic nature? What does it feel like to have both negative and positive aspects in life occurring simultaneously in alignment with divine grace? The most important thing right now is to simply remain present with all of the feelings that are rising to the surface. To just be present and watch and observe and breathe without any judgments or attachments. And then begin to notice what happens after a few breaths of holding both of these opposites. Allow all of the feelings and thoughts to dissolve. And then I'll invite you to release the practice and then slowly come to lying down on your back for a brief Shavasana. And so by practicing Shavasana at the end of our meditation, we allow ourselves to absorb all of the experiences of our mantra, of our meditation, of showing up to the process we allow our nervous systems to reintegrate and process all of the wonderful, nourishing tools that we have offered ourselves on this journey, our inward journey to the self. When you're ready, you can slowly release the practice. Thank you so much for joining me. Namaste.